took their 12-year-old daughter to the living room where she was violently raped, wearing blue jeans, a tweed jacket and a balaclava.
He entered the parents' bedroom, demanded money, and tied them up with copper wire.
Described as a monster that came in out. He was very quietly spoken. He took off the garbage bags he had belonged to the girl.
Police are concerned a man could be capable of murder.
They say it appears he had been watching the home and knew the teenagers were alone.
He was wearing a knitted dark green balaclava with green stitching.
13-year-old Carmen Chan had been babysitting her two sisters in their Templestowe home when the abductor struck.
Welcome back to a special episode of Melbourne Marvels and Who is Mr. Cruel podcast.
Yeah, very excited about this one, Eamonn. You've been out on a little adventure and spoken to someone. I think our listeners will be really interested to hear this one.
Yeah, I've managed to track down a very important witness in this case. So you'll remember that when Sharon Wills was abducted on the 27th of December, 1988, so she's held for, I believe, 18 hours, and the offender returns her and drops her at Bayswater High School. Now, a man came forward in the days after she was returned to say that he had seen a person who he believed could be the offender acting in a very suspicious way. And the police at the time considered this to be a very important witness sighting. So what we'll do is we'll play an ABC clip to trigger people's memory of this important witness sighting.
The suspect Commodore was seen driving near where Sharon Wills' terrifying abduction ended around midnight 8 days ago. It was turning left out of Jersey Road onto the mountain highway at Bayswater when it nearly collided with another car. The driver of that car has told police the Commodore had its lights off, its driver doing his best to avoid being seen.
He actually turned his head away from the view of the witness who was trying to have a look at him for various reasons, and pulled the car forward, trying to avoid showing his face to the other witnesses.
The Commodore continued down the mountain highway, finally turning right into Church Street towards Bayswater High School, where Sharon was found wrapped in garbage bags a short time later. The Commodore is an early 1980s Vacationer sedan with 3 blue stripes down the side. Police also want to talk to the driver of a red Toyota utility who may have also seen the suspect car.
Okay, so you managed to... The man you spoke to is the driver that they're talking about there?
Yeah, so even though his name wasn't revealed in those, in that clip or in the newspaper articles associated with it, his name was passed to me, I'll say, by a source, and I was able to track him down. And he's actually a very intelligent and I'd say credible person, very successful in what he does. So we're going to play a recorded interview between discussion basically between myself and him. We met at the site in question, so out at Bayswater.
Mountain Highway,
Bayswater? Yeah, the corner of Mountain Highway and Jersey Road. Just before I play the interview, I just want to read from the Sun article that was published on the 5th of January 1989. It stated in that article that the information had been provided to police by a motorist who had seen a driver acting suspiciously in the area Sharon was dumped. Inspector Danny Maloney said, "The witness was driving along Mountain Highway, Bayswater, about 11:15 p.m. on the night Sharon was found, when a white Holden Commodore Vacationer sedan turned out of Jersey Road in front of him. The witness was forced to swerve violently to miss the Commodore, which had its lights switched off. Inspector Maloney said that the Commodore's driver appeared anxious not to be identified. He said when the witness pulled up at traffic lights next to the Commodore, the man turned to avoid being seen. The witness's description matched that given to police by Sharon, and detectives were treating the information as a definite breakthrough." And so the article also says that the information was checked with Sharon before it was released. So, in other words, Sharon must have verified that this actually happened. Yeah.
Well, we've heard about this one before, and it's kind of been a bit of a topic of speculation online whether, police considered it legitimate, because there was never anything heard after that sort of January 89.
Exactly. So, and this is something I have been wondering myself for years as to whether it was still considered a valid witness account. And what I've found out is that it was never ruled out, and the owner of that vehicle was never identified. So, and that information, plus I'm sure our listeners will agree, some 2 or 3 other things from the interview are very interesting.
Well, let's listen.
Okay, so maybe you can just tell me in your own words what you remember from that day.
We'll head up more towards the corner.
Yep.
Jersey Road here. So
I'll just put the setting where we are. So we are on Jersey Road. Yep. We're heading north towards Mountain Highway, where you've had this well-known witness sighting in the case of the Sharon Wills abduction.
Yep.
Potentially seeing the offender in this case. Yep?
Yep.
Okay.
So I was going out with the girl in Mooralbark at the stage, and I was heading home, coming along Mountain Highway from the east.
Yep.
And I was driving along at, now it's a divided road. Back then it was just one lane each direction.
Yep.
And from up probably about 150, 200 metres up further, I could see a car approaching this intersection here, which is coming along from Jersey Road, heading towards Mountain Highway, and it didn't have its headlights on, which I thought was a little bit suspicious.
Yep.
But wasn't really taking that much notice of it until I started approaching the intersection more, because it's like the car had stopped, and then it came straight out, which I had to then slam heavily on my brakes as to avoid hitting him, because I believe it was about an 80k zone back then.
Yep.
And I started beeping my horn. And
so there were traffic lights back then?
No traffic lights.
This
was just one lane either direction. Like that building across the road there wasn't there. It was a lot less built up.
So he would have had a giveaway sign, and he hasn't given way to you going approximately 80 kilometres an hour.
Hasn't given way. It just looked, in my opinion, it was quite suspicious. And at that time of the night, and this being an industrial estate, I thought that was just a little bit weird. And I just thought, well, I had to brake to avoid. And then I started beeping the horn. And whilst I was yelling, I don't think he would have heard me at this stage until probably I got down to the next intersection. Is where my major interaction that did occur with him. But between here and the next intersection, which is Scoresby Road, maybe a kilometre down the road further, that's where I got into a bit of a road rage with the person. But between here and there, I was flashing my high beams on and beeping the horn constantly, being the probably, 21-year-old person that I was at that stage, something I wouldn't do now.
And just, so what sort of car were you driving at the time?
I was driving a red Ford Falcon.
Okay, red Ford Falcon.
And he was driving what I believe to be like a white Holden Commodore. And I wasn't 100% sure. It had 3 pinstripes down the side of the car. It either looked like they had a model around that stage of the Holden Vacationer. It was either that or 3 pinstripes that were very similar to that. And the reason why I actually said 3 pinstripes, my father had a blue coloured Commodore similar to that. And he had a blue Holden Vacationer. And that's where I remember the distinctness of those 3 pinstripes, but I can't remember whether it was a Vacationer or 3 distinct pinstripes down the side of the car. But it was definitely a Holden Commodore, and it was either a VK or a VH model.
So when you say you can't remember whether it was 3 pinstripes or a Vacationer, what do you mean by that? Because, like, is it not possible that it was both a Vacationer and had 3 pinstripes?
So the Holden Vacationer at that time had 3 pinstripes down the side.
Okay.
And it was 3 quite distinct ones.
Yeah.
And that's why I'd said it was very similar to a Holden Vacationer. And that's what I'd said in the statement. But it was either a VK or a VH Commodore, and I'm pretty sure it was a VK Commodore.
Okay.
I knew my cars.
So I was just about to ask that, like how familiar are you with cars and your good knowledge of cars?
Back then, I actually had a VK Commodore myself. My father had a VK Commodore, and I knew my Holdens. I'm a Holden man.
Wow, okay. So that's a good reason to consider your sighting quite a credible sighting.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, that sounds like he's got a really good memory of what he saw, and that's sort of accords with the details that came out in that newspaper article pretty well.
Yeah, so can you picture where they are at the moment, Jay?
So Jersey Road is like an industrial estate, is my understanding, but this is going back, obviously, 40 years, nearly?
That's right.
Help me with the maths. But so it would have been quite different then. Not a divided road, mountain highway at that time.
Yeah, so the suspect has come out of Jersey Road with his lights off.
And that's the weird bit, isn't it? The lights were off. Like, we can talk about why that what could have been.
Yeah. It might just have been that he was under a lot of pressure and forgot to put his lights on. But he's driven out and not given way to traffic going quite fast along Mountain Highway. And then this guy's gotten totally pissed off, and just conversation just finished up there. They were actually they had driven along Mountain Highway together with our witness in the right-hand lane and the suspect's car in the left-hand lane, and now they've arrived at a set of traffic lights at Scoresby Road.
Yeah, so the car emerging from this industrial estate with its lights off, not giving way. Yeah, it could. We still don't know if this is Mr. Cruel. It could just be something unrelated at this point. But if it is Mr. Cruel, and if we think that he's taking Sharon from a lair a long way away from Bayswater, different schools of thought on that, he's at the end of his journey and he's got the lights off. So he's either driven the whole trip with his lights off, or he's arrived there at Jersey Road and turned them off. Maybe he's scouting around looking for a drop-off location. But if he emerges into Mountain Highway without stopping, kind of sounds to me like he's not that familiar with the area, and he's looking around. He doesn't know where he is. That's kind of the impression I got from that, the way he described it then. Yeah,
it could be anything. What we know from Sharon's, what Sharon said was that she felt like the offender was trying to confuse her at times by driving around in circles, and it maybe confused himself. Yeah, like he might be looking for a place to drop her, or perhaps he knows where he's going to drop her and he's just driving her around circles. And he might be very concerned about being seen, and he might have just made the mistake of leaving his lights off. All right, so did the witness tell you anything else? And I think you'll probably agree with me that more than likely by the end of this, listening to this podcast, that you'll agree that this was the offender. But we'll get to that. We'll see. Okay. Now, do you want to describe what happened when you stopped next to this guy was it at traffic lights? It's at traffic lights on the corner of Scoresby Road and Mountain Highway. So I was on Mountain Highway. When I pulled up beside him, his car was already partly across the pedestrian lines. So I pulled up
where you're supposed to stop behind the pedestrian line.
Yep.
And then I thought, well, I'm going to have a bit of a conversation with this person, which he did not engage whatsoever. So I wound my passenger window down and started hurling insults to him, calling him all these F's and C's and didn't he see me? And I could sense he was agitated because he was leaning across more towards his passenger side seat, so I could not see his face. Right. So he's leaning across there, and he then inched forward, which made me inch forward a little bit more, and I started absolutely pelting him with insults, beeping the horn and calling him all the words under the sun. Began with the letter F and began with the letter C, and expressed why didn't he see me as a stupid this and just absolutely swearing. And you could sense that he was waiting for the traffic lights to change.
Right. Yeah, so what do you think about that?
Yeah, it paints a vivid picture. Yeah, I mean, the fact that the guy was trying to avoid engaging is suspicious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you could still put it down to someone just wanting to avoid a confrontation. There's nothing really there that...
And did you think it was interesting that he leant over to the passenger side of the vehicle? Yeah,
well, our understanding, if it's Mr. Cruel, Sharon would have been under the dashboard in the passenger seat, wouldn't she? So that would be consistent with, him sort of trying to protect her from the view of this witness.
Or, either just trying to avoid being seen.
Facing,
Or perhaps leaning towards her to check on her if she was there.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy obviously got a really good look for a long time. This interaction lasted minutes, by the sounds of it. It wasn't just a fleeting thing. So,
perhaps not as good a look at the offender as we would have liked, as he'll go on to explain.
That didn't stop me. That probably encouraged me to go a little bit further forward, which he inched his car further forward. And it was quite interesting. Every time I moved, say, a foot, he moved a foot forward.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where he was just about in the lane coming across from Scoresby Road. And at that stage, where I could see to my immediate left was the back seat of the car. And in the back seat of the car, and this is a sight that I'll never forget, I thought there was a blanket, but a person under the blanket. And at that stage, the blanket moved a little bit, and I thought I had seen what I saw was a young person in the back of the car, probably like 10 years of age. Like it was a young person. I thought they could have been asleep, and I just didn't know what to do because here I was absolutely abusing the crapper out of this person. This person could obviously hear me, and there was a young kid in the back of the car, at which stage I stopped. I just didn't want to continue engaging because I thought I've already made a dickhead of myself. I better just stop.
And so when you say there was a young person in the back of the car, could you see the person's face, or was it just the frame, like the size of the body?
No, what I saw was what I believed to be basically from that level, which is just above the lips but below the nose, up. And I've just gone, okay, I better stop. And the person had moved their body around to try and get the person to, what I believe, lower themselves and not make a scene. And that's when I've thought, I've gone too far. I better stop that. And like, the reason why I remember it so much is because I knew I'd gone too far in actually engaging with the person, having a go at them, and this young child in the back of the car, I was just going, well, that's a bit strange.
Yeah.
But I also remember two people on the side of the road walking up mountain highway, that way between Scoresby Road and the railway line.
Yep. Westish.
Yep, Westich. West. And they were watching what I was saying, and they could hear what I was saying.
Right.
Because it wasn't, like, they would have been about 80 to 100 metres away. I think anyone at probably 11:30 that night when I was there. Very quiet, not like it is now, but they would have been able to hear. Definitely would have been able to hear what I was saying.
Okay, so there's a lot there. So he saw a child in the car. Now that was not in the newspaper article, was it?
No. So that information was never released publicly. But what was did you have any other reaction to that?
Well, as I just said, I had assumed that Sharon was kept in the front seat under the dashboard. Now I'm wondering to myself, was that just an assumption, or was that what they said at the time?
I wondered the same thing, and you'll hear me express that to the witness. But I did go and check it afterwards, and it was the case that what Sharon actually said immediately after was that she was kept in the front seat.
Okay. On the return as well as...
On the return journey. Later, when she was re-interviewed much later, she said she wasn't sure if it was the front or back. But I would personally consider her first statement to be the most reliable than a statement that she makes 2 or 3 years later. And the initial statement was that she knew it was the front because I think she said that she could see the gear stick from memory. I think that's what it was next to her. So that's, I admit this is a
inconsistent with her statement.
Yeah, an inconsistency.
Well, what I'm thinking now, I don't know if I'm trying to just rationalise it here. I don't think. I mean, he may be misremembering it. That's the first thing. He may also have seen, if he was looking through the car window at an angle from behind, he may have been looking into the front passenger seat and not realised. So I think there are multiple ways to interpret it.
Exactly. Yeah, and look, it's 37 years since the incident in question, and we all know about the funny thing that memory is and how it can morph and change over time. But the reason I consider this extremely important now is just the fact that we know from his account, and he'll go into it in more detail, that they've gone and checked it with Sharon, and she's corroborated.
Well, it sounds like from what he's saying here, she would have heard him yelling. He was yelling at this guy in a quiet area at the lights, swearing at the top of his lungs, and that's when he saw the child move under the blanket.
Exactly.
So in his account, she definitely heard and sounded like she reacted to it as well.
Yeah. So we'll continue.
The lights then turned green.
Yep. And there was another car behind you as well, right?
Yeah, and this is there was another car behind me, and there was a car turning right from Scoresby Road into Mountain Highway. So there was only 2 other cars on the road and myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, the lights turned green, and back then there was the railway crossing across Mountain Highway, and the way it went up is, I don't know how to explain that. It went up the hill, then it was flat, then went up the hill. And if you went at a nice speed, you could probably just get your wheels off the road and just bounce across the railway line. But rather than continue to engage with this person, and try and accelerate and continue the road rage. I just knew that I had to stop. I'll leave it alone. There's a kid in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And that car was in the left-hand lane. He'd gone up and over the railway crossing at, what I say, nice speed. Not enough speed to actually jump, but certainly they would have been going over the speed limit at the time.
So, sorry, I think I lost it here.
Yep.
So the car you're describing now is the possible offender's car?
Offender's car.
Yeah.
So it took off at the lights.
Quite fast.
Quite fast. It accelerated off fastly. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just hung back.
Yeah.
But I hung back enough to just really see where the car was going. And what captured me a little bit strangely was that the car was in the left-hand lanes, continuing over the railway crossing and up over towards where Woolworths or Safeway is on the right-hand side. And from the left-hand side of the road, he moved very fast across to the right-hand side of the road and did a right-hand turn down a side street.
And that we believe is Church Road?
I don't know the name of the street,
okay,
but it went down that way,
yep.
And I just continued on my journey westbound along Mountain Highway.
Okay. I believe the reports from the time indicated that was Church Road or Church
Yep.
Street, I can't recall which one,
Yep.
which leads to Bayswater High School, which is the place where Sharon was dumped.
The drop-off point, yeah.
Yep.
So that's another bit of erratic driving from the vacationer, turning out of the left-hand lane across the right-hand lane into Church Street. So again, not like that. He's either rattled by what's just happened, or again, maybe he's not that familiar with these roads. Do you have an interpretation on what was going on there?
No. You know, you'd expect that someone in this situation would be attempting to draw the least amount of attention to themselves as possible, wouldn't you? But perhaps he's become flustered, having unintentionally pulled out in front of this other guy and realised now he's drawing more attention to himself than he wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else there that you noticed?
No, but you will hear me bring up the point about where Sharon in the car would have been positioned in the car. Okay. I do challenge him on that. And another detail, was there any other inconsistency that you may have noticed with what your knowledge is of this account?
Well, he said she was under a blanket. I think we've heard that the offender had a blanket in his car at times, so that sounds right. He said he saw her from the nose up. Now that's interesting because, well, we don't know what the lighting was like. So it would have been at the corner of Scoresby and Mountain Highway. Was it light there? Was it dark there? So she would have been still wrapped in the garbage bags, wouldn't she?
Yeah, so well done. That was what I was thinking of. So from what we know about this event, the offender wrapped Sharon in garbage bags while still back at the detention premises. He put a garbage bag over her head with holes for breathing holes for her nose and mouth. So I would have thought that he wouldn't have been able, the witness wouldn't have been able to see her from the nose up, as he stated.
Maybe a nose at best, you know.
Yeah. So that's two inconsistencies, but you'll hear me bring that up with him.
Okay.
So just going back a little bit, so the sighting you had, like, how much of the man in the car did you see?
Look, it was dark. It wasn't very light. I didn't really see enough of him to know what his exact facial features were. But I just remember he must have had something on his head to cover his hair, right? I don't know whether it was a baseball cap, I don't know whether it was a beanie, I don't know what it was, but there was no hair features.
Yeah.
I just know that he was like, when I say white in appearance, I don't know what the politically correct terminology it is, but it was enough to see part of his facial features.
So you could see that he was a white man.
Yep.
Could you estimate an age based on what you saw?
Not really, but like, it wasn't an old person, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I would say, anywhere between 30ish and 40ish.
Yeah, okay. And so at the time you were probably not considering this a particularly important incident. Like, okay, you saw, this guy did something stupid and then you were shouting at him and then you saw a kid and you thought, okay, I better stop. Yep. But you weren't considering this to be a potentially suspicious situation. Was it later on when you heard about the abduction that you realised perhaps you had seen something more important?
So, the area that we're in now is the industrial estate. I just kept a listen out on the news the next day about, if there was any incidents in this particular area was there a fire or was there something else down these side streets?
So you were already thinking that this was suspicious?
Yeah, it was suspicious. Like, coming out of this particular area and this, where we are now, it just didn't happen back then. It was not a busy industrial estate. And I just, when I say I didn't think much about it, certainly it was all over the news at that stage about Sharon Wills.
Yeah.
But I hadn't connected the dots.
Yeah.
It was furthest from my head because where they said she was dropped off was probably 2.5 kilometres from where we are standing right now.
Yeah.
So I had not connected those dots, and I kept on going backwards and forwards to my girlfriend's place, which I lived at Scoresby at that stage, she at Mooralbark, and they'd set up a police caravan and wanting people to actually drop off there if anyone was in the area.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing on the news, radio news that is, probably 2 days later, and again, this is where I go a little bit grey in my hair, if there was anyone in the immediate area beforehand that may have been involved in some type of, when I say vehicle incident, to come forward to the police.
Okay.
And I've gone, I wonder whether that was me. It had to do with the road rage incident, because I was a bit afraid of coming forward because I'd get into a bit of trouble for road raging. That's when I made contact with the police, and the police said, well, we need to speak.
So you called them, or okay.
Yep. I actually rang up Crime Stoppers, because that's what you did back in those days.
Yeah.
I rang up and explained what had happened, and they said they'd made contact with the detectives, and then said, you're an actual person that we need to speak to.
Yeah, because they would have been getting lots of crazy people contacting them, no doubt.
Yep.
Taking down silly leads, and they've considered this a serious, credible contact. Yeah.
So I actually said, well, what do you mean by need? Within 24 hours, I had detectives at my house questioning me.
Mm-hmm.
Said, right, we need to take this further.
Do you remember what their names were?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So he's the one who, or that the police put out the appeal for him to come forward.
Exactly.
He's not the one who sort of stepped forward, and he was not seeking attention or anything.
Yeah. So he said that they have said on this radio program that they've actually looked for someone who might have had some sort of incident with a vehicle on the night in question. And that's what's triggered his memory. And no doubt that's taken from what Sharon had told them.
Yeah, or could it be, I think he mentioned some other witnesses on the side of the road. So couldn't it also have been them that reported this to the police and they were trying to corroborate that?
Yeah, possibly, but I'd say that the reason that they gave it such importance must be because it was corroborated by Sharon.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Because otherwise it wouldn't be considered an important witness sighting.
So between that and the fact that he saw a child in the car, I mean, sounding pretty ironclad at this point.
Yeah.
Unless there's some kind of false memory happening here. But he would have made this all as a statement to police. So what was in his statement?
So we did discuss that as well, and it's something that he's talking about getting from the police, because he didn't actually have his statement. But it's something that he'd be able to access. He'd be able to request from Victoria Police, because it'd be interesting to see how his original statement compares to what he remembers.
Yeah, because there's always that risk after 40 years.
Yeah.
You start to describe it as you've read it in the news, or you incorporate the known facts. Although, I mean, he didn't mention the garbage bags.
No.
Yeah, he didn't mention some other things.
Yeah. So we'll continue playing it.
Yeah, so then they'd had a couple of conversations with me. Back then they interviewed my parents and my girlfriend's parents to try and
corroborate your story. Yeah.
And going through all of that. And then they'd organised some times for me to go to St Kilda Road Police Station, which I happened to be working around the corner from at that stage, and have an interview with them and go through to where I made the statement and went through as much detail as possible that I can recall.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So why do you think they thought your sighting was so important to the point that they actually released it in the media?
They had stated at the time that the person who was driving the car had a verbal altercation, or somebody was having a go at that driver. So yelling at that driver prior to her being dropped off.
When you say they had stated at the time, you mean when they released it in the media?
No, they didn't state that in the media release.
Yeah.
They stated it to me when I'd gone to the St Kilda Road Police Station, that what they'd had is that the person they believed had had an interaction with another driver beforehand, and approximately 5 or 10 minutes before she was dropped off at the school.
Okay, so this, I think, now is the most important piece of information. And in fact, one of the newspaper articles at the time, I recall there was a kind of mysterious line in there where it actually said the information was checked with Sharon prior to being released.
Yep.
So obviously she would be the only person that could corroborate that. They've checked it with her. She would have heard you shouting.
Yes.
And so that's obviously why they've felt that this is really important, and that so this is actually hugely significant, because essentially this almost certainly means that you are one of the very few people who had an interaction with Mr. Cruel.
Yeah, that's certainly on the day that I went into the St Kilda Road Police Station to make the statement was the day I'd realised that was most likely me.
And that, because I've been researching this case for years, not knowing how to consider this sighting, whether it was, look, it's obviously been considered important at the time, but if years later they still considered it an important sighting, and obviously it is. And so this proves to me that this definitely was the offender.
Yeah, well, the other thing I remember at St Kilda Road Police Station was I had to reenact what I was saying. And I'm thinking, okay, I just have to yell, I shouldn't say yell, but I just had to say, I called him an effing C and I called him this. No. They wanted me to say it at the at the volume that I was saying it. And here I am on whichever floor of St Kilda Road Police Station I was at, yelling quite loudly the F words and the C words, which I didn't think was probably right to say in a police station, but
you would have felt strange.
It was, I just said, I can't say it. And they said, no, we need to match this up. And we've got other people listening into this.
So no doubt they've played this to Sharon as part of, they would have been gathering evidence for any potential court case that would occur in the future.
Look, I had a sixth sense that she was maybe in a room next door to where I was, because I had to wait about half an hour before I was interviewed, before they put me into this room to be interviewed.
Yep.
And I had to wait, after giving the statement, I had to wait about a half an hour before I left. So they kept me in what I would call a more separate environment, which I thought was a bit strange at the time, but looking back at it, I believe she would have been in the room next door or very close to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go, Jay.
Nice work, Eamonn. I reckon that'll, put to bed some of that speculation. I mean, there's still it's not 100% sure, but it sounds very likely that Mr. Cruel had a Holden Vacationer in December 1988.
Yeah.
And he was a Caucasian male, not old. That's what your witness said, right?
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned the couple of inconsistencies. But the fact that Sharon was likely listening in to corroborate this, she's the one who said somebody had a go at him 5 minutes before I was dropped off. Yeah, he mentioned that the police that he was talking to said that the offender had this interaction with another driver. So, they have corroborated that to him. So that's why I think that it pretty much confirms that this was a genuine sighting of the offender. And did he confirm that it was a Vacationer? He said it had 3 pinstripes, and he said it was a Holden sedan. And he said his dad had the same model, so he was in a good position to be able to make that claim. Yeah, and he mentioned how, I do question him on the inconsistencies and his knowledge of cars, so I think we're still to hear that part. There's a couple of things that you mentioned that I'd like to bring up just to see your thoughts on it, and it's something I actually have to go back and check again. Yep. But my understanding is that when he abducted these girls, and when he was driving them from their house to the detention premises, and from the detention premises to drop them off, that they were kept on the floor in the front seat. Right. Okay. Under the dashboard. Yep. And that's my memory of it. Now I have to go back and check this. In this particular case, I'll have to go back and check exactly where she believed she was kept on the return journey. Yep. The other thing is, from my memory, is that he had placed in the detention premises, he had placed garbage bags over her. Yep. And that when he dropped her off, he actually carried her around for a bit with these garbage bags on her. Yep. And in fact, this may have been, in case anyone saw him, they might have thought he was someone putting out the garbage because it was the garbage day. Yeah. So the two things that you said was that you saw her in the backs. You saw someone in the back seat. Yeah, certainly believe that's where she was. Yep. And that you saw from the lips up. Yeah. What I believe was that the lips up. Yeah. So that's something I have to go back and check in detail. I know one of the common mistakes that's often repeated in this case is they say that when she was released, she still had the garbage bags on. Actually, that's not the case. I know without a doubt, he took the garbage bags off. After he took her out of the car, he took the garbage bags off and released her. And she was released just wearing a man's shirt. But to my mind, she would have still had the garbage bags on in the car. And from my memory, she was in the front under the dashboard.
Yep.
So that's the only thing where I'm like, let's check that again.
And going back in time, that's what I remember. Like, it was speaking here, I don't know how long it is, 30 years ago?
Yeah.
So did you get a chance to then check her statement or what she said about where she was in the car on the way back?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, like she had said that she was in the front seat, and she mentioned what she was able to see in the front seat, like the gear stick in the.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was an automatic one. I can't remember the term that was used. What's it called? 8 on the floor, 4 on the floor, 4 on the floor. Yeah, 4 on the floor, I believe, but don't quote me on that. But she was saying in her first witness statement that was where she was, in the front, under the dash.
Well, be interested to hear what listeners, think about that.
Yeah, look, it is an inconsistency, but this is the thing we always hear about memory. Memories can change over time, right?
I'm trying to make it fit, I don't know, but if Sharon was led to the offender's car from the detention premises, put in what she thought was the front seat, maybe she saw the gear shift on the way there and she's confusing that.
Well, yeah, that's another possibility. The other thing is the offender carried her every time. He carried her to the car on the way to the detention premises. He carried her from the car. He carried her to the car on the way back from the detention premises, and he carried her out of the car. She never stepped out at any point.
Could have been confusing for her.
Yeah, it would have been, difficult for her to tell much about terrain. He also carried her within the detention premises everywhere, from room to room. So it would have been difficult for her to determine the layout of the detention premises because she wasn't walking around like Nicola Linus was.
Right.
If she's in garbage bags, she'd have a hard time seeing the gear shift and stuff. She'd see it on the way. She'd see more going to the detention premises, but if she's under a blanket and in black garbage bags...
That's an excellent point, producer Andrea. No, producer Andrea is an excellent point, yeah. I mean, the fact is, if she was... We hear that he created holes for her. From memory, it was a breathing hole. I'm not sure if she could see out of the garbage bag as well, whether there was holes for her eyes, but I suspect that she was also blindfolded. So
unlikely to have been able to see the gear shift in that state.
But, sorry, I'm not going to say I suspect. She was blindfolded as well. She definitely was. He blindfolded all of his victims all the time. So, yeah,
and probably would have been more careful around applying the blindfold on the return journey than on the way to the premises.
Yeah, she would have had the garbage bag and the blindfold on the return journey.
And I think on the way there, he stopped to tighten her, to reapply her blindfold after she admitted she could see a little bit near Antonio Park or wherever she was abducted from in the first place, over in Ringwood.
Yep, that's right.
The one thing that I do remember the detective saying is that he would drive around the blocks for half an hour, just driving down different streets to try and get the person lost before they would he dropped them off. That's another thing that I remember, but I don't. Again, when I say I don't know, I don't know. I wasn't I'm not Mr. Cruel, obviously.
Yeah. There was a couple of discrepancies in the time like I believe the ABC footage which I sent you this morning, that specifically said 11:30. One of the newspaper articles said 11:15, and sometimes you see that these discrepancies. Do you have any memory of what it was?
No, I don't. When I say I don't remember the time, I just know that I used to leave my girlfriend's house at Mooralbark anywhere between 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night. And I would have had a more exacting time with the statement. I don't even have the statement.
And that's something you should be able to get. You know, with a freedom of information request. But
like honestly, I've lost the statement. It's when I say it's that long ago. It is that long ago. It's actually be 35 years ago. I'm trying to think. Probably be 35 years ago.
37.
37.
Almost, 30. So it'll be 37 this year.
Didn't know.
And, you know, what I don't understand is how the police never tracked it down, because you'd think there'd only be a finite number of...
So they said at the time Holden didn't actually keep track of all the VIN numbers of the vacationers. They just kept VIN numbers of the vehicles that came off the production line.
Right. So the question on everyone's mind would be, well, why didn't they just go track down every vacationer owner and haul them in? But if Holden didn't keep track of which car was a vacationer, they would have just been basically, they're casting the net too wide, because all they would have known is Holden Commodore owners, and there would be many thousands of those.
I can only assume that the witness here didn't get the rego number. I didn't actually ask him that, but that's what you'd assume, that he didn't get the rego number of the vehicle. I mean, we don't know whether the suspect in this case was using his own vehicle or not. I think we tend to think that he probably was, based on the fact that he told Sharon that it was a stolen vehicle.
Right.
And, you know, anything he's telling her is likely to be untrue. But so if they didn't have a rego and all they knew was that it was a Holden Commodore Vacationer or a Holden Commodore VK, it sounds like they wouldn't have been able to track it down from what he was saying.
Needle in a haystack. Unless they had a suspect who happened to have a Holden Vacationer, which they may have done. Maybe one of their top suspects was in that bracket, but we don't know that.
Because what for me was pretty important was that the offender had said to Sharon, he had tried to make her believe that the car was stolen. So he had said while she was in the detention premises, actually when he was just leaving, he was trying to start the car and it wasn't starting, and he said, you know, so he would often do this. He would often say things to mislead his victims, right? And he said, you know, stolen cars often don't start properly. Right. Now, so that makes me think, like, it was one of a number of red herrings that he used in, you know, with both her and Nicola Linus, where it's like he's trying to throw them off. And it makes me think that almost certainly it was his car, you know?
Look, nothing would surprise me. I mean, I know that the VK Commodore itself went, because I had one, you could muck around with it to make it sound like that. If you knew how to. I didn't know that, what you just told me, but you could just literally turn the key for a fraction of a second to make it sound as though it wasn't starting properly.
Right.
Because that was just when I can't remember whether they had them back then, whether it was the automatic choke or not, or it was the manual choke, but it wasn't working exactly 100%, and it could take a couple of little turns before it would start up. That was one of the niggly bits with the VK Commodore.
So just because I don't know a lot about cars, but the VK Commodore is not the Vacationer, or?
No, so it's So back then they had, it's like the different models of cars. You had the base model, you had the intermediate model, and you had the premium model. But then they would come out with a special edition vehicle that had everything thrown in, because back then, as an example, with the Commodore range, air conditioning was optional, right? And they called it the Vacationer because air conditioning was for free with this car. So it was like getting the mid-base car at the base price.
Right.
With it had that. I'm trying to think. The pinstripes, because pinstripes were, pretty cool back then. Different story today. And I think it was an upgraded radio system. And there was something else that they'd thrown in. And it came in 3 colours. One was a white colour, one was a blue colour, and I can't remember what the other colour was.
Yeah.
But it was just a special run of vehicles promotional vehicle that they would sell at the time. And from time to time, cars still will come out with some type of something or other pack.
Yeah.
Make it sound as though it's you're getting something for free, but you're still paying for the car.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was interesting. Lucky he knows his cars, and he was able to. He had one himself.
Yeah, and it gives a possible explanation as to when the offender. It sounded like to Sharon that the car wasn't starting. Well, it's possibly this is another one of his famous red herrings, where he's purposely making it sound like the car's not starting.
Yeah. Or, of course, he may have been actually having trouble starting the car.
Yeah.
Which is more likely if it wasn't his car and he wasn't familiar with the choke. And he made that comment about the stolen car to try to cover up the fact that, or to explain it away. So, could be taken either way. And that's what, his little red herrings are so diabolical like that, aren't they?
So, you've heard the witness's account now, Jay, in his own words. What's your impression of the whole thing? Because I think that it's quite a scoop, and it's there's quite a bit more revealed here that wasn't in the original newspaper articles.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there's no reason to doubt him as a witness, and he believes what he is saying. Of course, after 40 years, there's always a question around his memory of the details.
And just on him, by the way, as I said before, this guy's a very successful man. One of the reasons he doesn't want to be identified.
He's not, seeking attention. He hasn't come to you. You've found him.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned before that both you and I have been informed of some very interesting suspects by members of the public in the past, and we have had some really credible information passed on to us. We have had a lot of the opposite too, where people are, attention seekers or people who aren't, fully mentally healthy, become obsessed with this case. But in this case, this is a man who I can guarantee he's a very credible witness.
And he's one of the few people who had an interaction with Mr. Cruel. And
yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, so you'd be one of the few people alive today that knowingly have had an interaction with this offender.
And as we said, drove a white Holden Commodore in December 1988, probably a vacationer.
Yep.
And was a Caucasian white male, not old is what he said, under 40, because he was only 21 himself. So,
on that, by the way, I did actually, using newspapers.com, you can go and actually search records from the age from that time period, and I did do a keyword search on Holden Commodore Vacationer, and just to see who was selling any in the weeks after this event. Okay. And I did have a few hits. It was interesting, and of course they'd come up as ads, people selling their their vehicle. And, on the ad is a phone number, so that gives you a lead. You can go and search for a phone number. So this is my little bit of internet sleuthing I was doing. But yeah, you just never know. You find a couple of vacationers, people who are trying to sell, and you try to match the phone number to some other ads and see if you can find the person in question. But you just never know, was that the offender or not,
Well, if it was the offender that this witness saw, then yeah, he would have known that his car was seen, and he would have been worried about it being traced back to him.
Possibly, yeah.
And so selling it sounds like a likely thing that he would have done. The next abduction wasn't until July 1990, so, maybe this is what sort of scared him off for a while.
Yeah, we have no way of knowing that, because this vehicle, just say it was Mr. Cruel, it was his vehicle. Well, who knows? It could have been a company car. It could have been, or perhaps it was a friend's car. We just don't know.
No. But we know a lot more now than we did before. So thanks, Eamonn. Great scoop.
You're welcome.
Another thing I remember in the witness statement, I never forget it, is that they said, if you realised that was him, what would have you done to him? And I expressed I probably would have ripped him apart and killed him.
Wow.
Because I just don't like that then, and I don't like that now.
No.
And they did put that in the statement.
And took their 12-year-old daughter to the living room where she was violently raped, wearing blue jeans, a tweed jacket and a balaclava.
He entered the parents' bedroom, demanded money, and tied them up with copper wire.
Described as a monster that covered in acne. He was very quietly spoken. He took off the garbage bags he had behind the girl.
Police are concerned a man could be capable of murder.
They say it appears he had been watching the home and knew the teenagers were alone.
He was wearing a knitted dark green balaclava with green stitching.
13-year-old Carmen Chan had been babysitting her two sisters in their Templestowe home when the abductor struck.